Hello, and welcome to the Project Elected podcast. Project Elect is a nonpartisan nonprofit whose goal is pretty simple. We want to get more Latter-day Saint women involved in public service. On this podcast, we interview amazing Latter-day Saint women who are involved in public service. Hi, my name is Audrey Perry-Martin. I'm the founder of Project Elect and the host of this podcast. We are going to do something a little different for our next few podcast episodes. So far, we've been really focused on women who've run for office, but we also want to encourage Latter-day Saint women to get involved in public service in other ways as well. And one of the best ways to do that is to dip your toes into public service by serving on a board or commission. So on our next few podcast episodes, we're going to highlight some women who serve on boards and commissions, as well as actually explain what a board or commission is and how to get on one. We want you to get involved as well in boards and commissions. So my guest today is an incredible cheerleader for women getting involved in boards and commissions, Nina Barnes. She runs the boards and commission spokes for Boulder Way Forward. And if you don't know what any of that means, that's okay. We'll get to it, I promise. But Nina is fun and smart and has already taught me a lot about this space and boards and commissions. So Nina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Audrey. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Nina, would you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your journey in public service and how you got here?
Like many of your listeners, I was a mom staying home, had kids, busy with all of that, and realized I lived in a community that had very few playgrounds. In fact, we had one, and it was an old wooden structure in our Main Street park, and we, of course, had them at schools. I was approached by another mom, and we built up a little coalition. We met at McDonald's every Monday for a year, and we dreamed and designed and fundraised and lobbied our city and city council to build a playground. And a year later, we built Park Discovery in Ceader City, Utah, which was a $500,000 playground. And I was the general coordinator of that process. We had 10,000 volunteers. It was an incredible undertaking and really changed my life as I got to participate in building a playground for all the children in southern Utah. And it was incredible. After the playground was completed, I looked at my community and saw that there just weren't other moms like me that represented me all the way up to the President of the United States. They all looked the same. And wonderful men, many dear friends, but very similar in their religious beliefs, in their political beliefs, in their lifestyle. And so at that point, I decided I had to get involved. And so I joined the Parks and Rec Board, which led me to run for city council, which led me to many other opportunities on boards. So that first step was stepping in to build a playground for my kids and other kids in my community.
Nina, tell me what you do now with boards and commissions, because you're not just involved, you're very involved and you're doing all kinds of things to encourage women to be on these boards.
Oh, that young decision. I think I had a 1-year-old and 2 other kids, and that decision to lean in at that busy time of life really has changed the trajectory of my public service and my personal fulfillment and confidence. I have had an opportunity to serve on many boards. Sometimes I joke and say I'm a professional board member, although I'm never paid, so I'm really not a professional, but I have served on many, from Board of Trustees to Utah Summer Games, to trails, to building a veterans park. Most recently, I've spent the last couple of years, I get to serve on Envision Utah, which is a statewide board. I just finished 10 years on the Utah System of Higher Ed as what people would know as a Board of Regents, and oversaw all 16 universities and was the vice chair of that board. I currently serve on the Policy Project Board, which we all love what they do in Utah and beyond. And then also I'm on the Boulder Way Forward, which is the new Utah initiative. And I am a spoke leader over political and civic engagement.
So some of our listeners probably haven't heard of Boulder Way Forward and this term spoke and what that means. Can you explain to us what Boulder Way Forward is, what they do, and what the spokes are, especially the one that you run?
It's really a wonderful opportunity. The sad part of the story is that Utah consistently ranks the worst state in the country for women, which is just so unsettling. And so a couple of years ago, Dr. Susan Madsen created the Boulder Way Forward, put together with a team of business owners and the governor's office and others to come up with a solution. Like, how do we improve the quality of life and the contributions of Utah women. And so the initiative is called the Boulder Way Forward. And so it includes these different categories. And if you, I think, Audrey, you're going to give them the QR code or a link to that, right? And you're going to be able to go on and see those areas of interest. And they just cover all the areas where we have challenges for women and girls in Utah. As they started this initiative, I was approached to step into the space of community engagement spoke, which is the political and civic representation. As if we started working in this space, we decided that we couldn't any longer in Utah just chase the political piece, like getting women to run. It's really problematic. We are in a conservative state, and it's really hard to get Republican women elected to statewide offices. And so we dialed in this, we researched where are women winning in this community space. And we know that women are winning when they run for municipal or local races. Women are winning on boards and commissions and succeeding, and also in advocacy work. That when women lean into changing policy and advocating in their communities and state, that they're making a difference. So our spoke is focusing on those three areas that we believe women are doing really well in Utah in.
That sounds like a great idea. And I love that you have the data and know where women are winning in the state of Utah and know what to focus on. And I also think it's so important. People talk about running for office a lot. We talk about running for office a lot at Project Elect, but you can often take steps to running for office, and boards and commissions or advocacy or running for municipal office are great stepping stones to run for higher office. And a lot of women who don't want to run for office can get involved anyway, and they don't have to put themselves out there in the same way and deal with all the negative stuff that comes with campaign.
And I think that's the beauty of community service is when you look at these spokes we're talking about, which are just the areas, the categories in Boulder Way Forward, from childcare to child sexual abuse, domestic violence, higher ed, leadership development, homelessness, like the areas just are so broad that for women to find areas of interest to them personally, like what is your life story? What's your narrative? What's your skill set? And then go find a place to serve as an extension of that is the meaningful work, right? Not everyone needs to be elected to this office or that, but we all need to be contributing and supporting those who can excel in those spaces or offices.
Tell me a little bit more about boards and commissions and what they are, where you apply for these, and what types of boards and commissions there are. We use this term all the time, but I don't think everyone really knows what we're talking about.
I know. And it's new as women for us to be discussing boards and commission or policy making advocacy work. This is a new area, but it's also really fun and exciting because there's such opportunity there. The first thing I would say to that, Audrey, is look to your listeners, wherever you are, whatever you're already doing, you're most likely involved in some kind of membership or a meeting or a council. It can be in your home. It could be in your church. It could be in your business or work. And so don't think of boards and commissions as this thing out there. It's oftentimes already what you're doing with your PTA assignment or your ward council assignment. And so really look at those as opportunities and experience you already have for running a meeting or being a member of or influencing people or learning leadership skills. What we're seeing, the opportunity for women is really what's the next step to that? Is that, okay, I'm already on the PTA committee. Maybe I need to run to be the president next year because I have 3 things I would really like to change or implement. And so whatever seat you're at, look at what is the next step I personally could contribute in to make change, particularly in other people's lives, but also in my life, in my children's life, in my family's life, and contribute as a daughter of our Heavenly Father to this community and this experience.
So what type of time commitment are we talking about here? Because I know a lot of women are reluctant to sign up for one more thing because there's so much going on in their lives. They've got young kids or teenagers, and they're just taking so much of their time, whether they work from home, whether they're at home full time. It's hard to find time for more. So what kind of time commitments are we talking about? And is this something that's worthwhile to do?
Great questions. I'm later in life and I look back at my life and I think it's really just the intent. you are already writing your stories, you're writing your family stories, your narrative is being experienced. What do you find of value? Because all moms can be consumed with laundry and food and decorating and exercise and all these things. And so, really, it's a priority for me of what did my family value. And I was a stay at home mom. I ran my own business while staying at home. But I also raised kids seeing a mom who took care of herself, her family, her stewardship to do more and impact the world, but also a mom who really cared about other people's children. That as I was down doing PTA or doing the carnival or building parks or trails, that my mindset was not just about my 5 children, but what about all the other children, God's children, who may not have all the needs met like mine do, and that I had an opportunity to elevate and lift and influence. And so that became equally important to me as what I did within the walls of my home. And my husband and children were very supportive. And now, as my children are adults, they greatly admire and respect the work I did, the volunteer work I did outside the home.
I admire that so much. I'm in the thick of it right now. My middle daughter gets very angry whenever I'm not exactly where she wants me. I have to go on a 24-hour trip next week, and I got her a babysitter. And last night she's like, "Why are you giving me a replacement mother?" In the most dramatic. And it's hard to hear that and think, okay, I'm playing the long game here. I want her to be independent. I want her to see that I'm doing this to help others and to help other people that aren't her, because she's very privileged and she has everything she needs. And it's good for her to learn to be a little less self-centered and more independent. But it's hard when you're the mom and you're listening to that and the guilt kicks in.
And the culture and your friends' moms, everyone's saying, and this is what it looks like. And I think it's always really challenging to disrupt that a little bit and say, that may be what it looks like, but I am to be authentic and true to who I am and who my creator made me to be. And for me, it was a wonderful gift to be involved. I think it built incredible confidence in myself. My life has been very fulfilled and very meaningful. And I think the gifts back to my mental health and wellness and to my children were really great, but it was intentional. It was something that was important to her and still is important to our family. And there are times where it's complicated, but that's okay. Our goal was to raise independent children and children who, we are there and supportive, but at the same time, I want my children to be giving back to community and serving. And really, we're disrupting what does service look like, right? As Mormon, when we already do this in our home, we do this in our church, we do it in our school. And so it's just taking that to a new level of what does service look like.
And the women who've been doing this in the home and in their church and in their schools, they have this perspective that's so valuable in so many ways that we really need them to contribute their perspective and their understanding and their values. Like your story about the park, you saw a need in your community that maybe a lot of other women saw, but you were willing to step up and actually do something about it. And I also love how you talked about your faith too, and how as LDS women, we really have these leadership skills that we've learned and really should utilize them to serve outside of our family as well. And I think we have so many examples of prophets and apostles telling us, get involved in your community, serve others, and not just your church brothers and sisters, but those in your community who really could use your help and use the light that you could bring to their lives.
It's so powerful and every bit as meaningful. As mothers, we've owned this concept that I am a biological mother. But as a woman, I'm so much more than the biological mother to just my children. I am a mother to all God's children or my brothers and sisters. And that stewardship is great. And I think sometimes we get lost in the busyness of our own children and paving this golden pathway for them when there are other children who need basic necessities. And we have the skill set and the privilege or the opportunity to influence their lives, and it's meaningful work. And I would strongly suggest it. And boards and commissions are just such an easy first step. I'd love to talk about advocacy work and running for office as well. I do serve on the Utah Women Run Board for the last 7 years. Mormon women at the table is so critical. I'll oftentimes sit in board meetings and I look around and there's amazing women, but rarely is there a mom or a Mormon woman or a rural woman. And that diversity of what we all have and can bring and offer is so critical to better outcomes of boards and commissions or appointments.
Tell me a little bit about first steps. How would somebody get involved in a board or commission? Where would they look to even find out if there's openings? How do you apply? What's the timeline? What are the logistics here?
For a lot of men, it may not be as intimidating, the first steps, because often they're nudged. Oh, their buddies on this board, or oh, you should call so and so. It really happens organically. Women have to be a little more intentional, and you have to put yourself out there a little bit and let people know, oh, I really would like to serve on the PTA board, or I've considered running for office, or you should run to be the president. And women who already are serving, that are out there and engaged in their community, you may have to go take them to lunch or go sit down and visit and tell them that you are interested in this area and this is why I'm passionate about it and I would like to be more engaged. These are all can be hard things for Mormon women to do, right? We're usually asked to the table or asked to the meeting or called. And it's a little uncomfortable. We have to put ourselves out there, but the rewards are great and your confidence will grow. The other idea I would have for you is or suggestion for you would be to take some time and do some self-discovery. What are you passionate about? Do you care about homelessness? Do you care about hidden disabilities? Do you care about feeding the poor? Are you all in your schools or anxiety or suicide? Do you have a personal example or an experience in your life that's made you particular to people that are dealing with sexual abuse? So whatever it might be that either your experience or your passion, which passion is really your God-given talents, right? These are things our Heavenly Father want us to develop and contribute and grow. Discover what those are and look at the resources. So I know, Audrey, you're going to give them some links to boards and commissions for the state. There are 375 boards and commissions in the state of Utah. It's going to take a little work, but they have a ton of opening. And like I said, the governor of our state is really working on gender diversity and absolutely believes that gender diversity and representation on boards and commissions leads to much better decision making, better outcomes for your family, for you yourself, for your community.
We will definitely put the links to all of these boards and commissions in the show notes, as well as for a few other states. But what kind of qualifications do you need to do this? And how are they deciding who actually gets put on the board of commission and commissions? What do you need to compile to show you're qualified?
Yeah, I love that question, Audrey, because we know about the imposter syndrome, right? We know as women that we're never as qualified, and we think we don't need to check all the boxes to be able to have an opportunity, and it's simply not the case. Many boards, particularly local boards in your city or community, actually just need people who are going to be passionate and show up and are committed. And one of the first things you could do is really go look at your city. If you don't have friends who are already serving or people in the know, which I bet most people do, you know who those active, really engaged friends that you follow or you watch who always know what's going on. That's really a great resource, but also just in your community. You can go to any city website or call the city offices and ask what boards and commissions, what they have available. Start attending meetings. They're open meetings. They might be school district meetings. They could be PTA meetings. It could be your football league or your daughter's gymnastics club that have boards. It could be your HOA that you just need to get involved with. If you start thinking about the boards and commissions around you and the groups and the memberships, you're probably have a lot in that space. Sign up, get involved with one, and do a good job. Show up, be prepared, contribute, influence, and you will be surprised that other opportunities will open up for you as you show up.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a great way to discover what you are passionate about. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't have an issue that you really care about. But if you look at a couple boards in your city, and they usually want people so desperately on those boards and really are very excited for people who are willing to put in the time to serve, you can say, oh, I really care about parks. I really care about the arts. I really care about the traffic congestion or something, things like that, or homelessness or feeding people or whatever it is that can help you identify your your passions. For these city boards,
Absolutely.
is this like a full-time job? Is how much of a
No. So mini boards are going to be less than once a month, where it's a hour or 2 hour commitment. So I think you can get involved as much as you want or as little as you want. As far as that first recommendation of when the meetings are, some boards have a quarterly meeting. So it's just all going to vary on what kind of board. But the first step is really just getting engaged, finding out what the interest is, attending some meetings. I know a lot of people who've started on boards that they actually weren't that passionate about, but because they were committed and they showed up, they had a great skill set and a good mind, they were able to contribute and influence. And then over time, now I'm to a point where I only pick boards or say yes to things that I really feel passionate about and align with my personal mission. And so I feel really lucky at this season to do that. But I know I was all the Veterans Park board, the recycling board. I did all those funny boards that I had to do as I was building up my reputation and just wanting to be involved. And I actually love each and every assignment. And one of the greatest things we haven't talked about is the network of people you'll meet. Your life will become so much bigger and meaningful as you work alongside other like-minded people that care deeply about their community and children and families. And that's really the tremendous payback.
So I am on a board right now that I swear is the best board you could possibly be on. It's my city's Community Recognition Commission. And all we do, we meet 4 times a year and just give awards to great people in our community. It's fantastic. There's no controversy. It's very low commitment. I get to work with the city council members, the school board members, the people on the commission. And I just feel so much more connected to my community through this tiny little board I'm on that really is very little effort on my part.
What a great example. We're all looking for that, right? I think your listeners are all looking for these ways of engagement. And it is a golden nugget when you find that. And I have had those opportunities too. It just makes life so rich and meaningful. So I hope our listeners, your listeners, really prioritize and figure out how to do that, and how as women it's equally important. And I know our younger generation's doing this so much better. There's just this self-care, and that this is your life and your story. And it is about being a daughter of a Heavenly Father and a wife and a mother. And what is the next and? What is the and that you need? And I think that's the beauty of what we're looking at. And our Heavenly Parents want that for us, right? To do our self-development, magnify ourselves, and in a service way. It's a beautiful thing.
And it's such an opportunity for personal growth as well as serving others. And I'm such a believer that service is the best way to deal with a lot of things. It really lifts you up as you're lifting others up. And it's such a beautiful thing that a lot of us understand that, but there's so many ways to serve, and you don't have to necessarily be asked. You don't have to be called to be Relief Society president or primary president or whatever in order to serve in these ways that you can really help others.
And just to be so intentional about it. This is really fun to think that you're writing your story. And what do you want to fill the chapters with? And I think the wrestle, we talked earlier, Audrey, just the wrestle between what are the trade-offs? What do I give up? What does my child maybe not get? And is that okay? Or maybe my child doesn't need that. And maybe it's good for her. Maybe it's even better for them. There's a ton of peer pressure in motherhood. And I think really being in tune to your own spirit, your own authentic self, and listening to the spirit as far as what's best for you and your family and your home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is so true. And it's such an added benefit of all of this is that it really can lift you as you use your light to lift others. And it's amazing how that works, right? It's almost like it was planned.
Yeah, it's almost like.
Right.
I think it was.
Yeah, me too. So another thing I wanted to ask you about is what if you get on these boards or commissions and say you're the only woman or you're the only mother and you feel maybe intimidated by this? How do you understand that your perspective is valid and you're there for a reason and have the confidence to speak up?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And I have had many opportunities looking around the room and being very intimidated. I can tell you the imposter syndrome is real. We all feel it. It's just how do you navigate it? And I would say to your listeners today, most of you guys have felt this. You've been in a space where it may be talking about politics. It may be in a ward council. It may be in another leadership space, a professional situation where you have been silenced. There's two fears there. One, that you're going to say something and misspeak. The second fear is that you don't say anything and then you live with the guilt of having been silenced. And so this is really real and something that we all have to challenge ourselves and work through and be courageous. And all the things we're teaching our children, especially our daughters, we have to learn to practice ourselves. And I think it's really being in touch with, again, who you are. And we know who we are, right? How lucky we're daughters of a Heavenly Father. We know the gifts we've been given. We know the truths we hold, and really having that inner confidence to be courageous and use that in a dignified, kind, influential way. And so those are learned skills. And to go into a meeting and think you have to do all and be all this, you don't. And really getting out of what everyone else thinks and owning your voice is a very powerful process and also needed. So oftentimes when you're in this space, all the men aren't going to agree because they actually don't see it exactly how you do. And that's part of the reason we need gender diversity in the room, is so we can support each other. You guys can practice this right now as you're in ward council or presidency meetings or any leadership meetings, supporting other women, supporting when you hear their silence, that you can be the person to support additional conversation as we make decisions.
That's such a good response. And I agree with it completely. I also think you touched on it earlier where you said, know your divine worth, know your potential, and remember you're a daughter of God, right? And that you are supposed to be there and you have something to contribute, and you can bring your light and your faith and truth to the situation and really help make a difference. And if you're there for the right reasons, you're supposed to be there.
I love that you touch on that, because those are additional tools that, because we're on an LDS podcast, we can talk about that. Is before I went into any stressful meeting, one, I always would have a prayer in my heart, but official prayer, and using that, because my stewardship and my public service has been an extension of my faith, and that I do rely on that when I decide to run for office or I've decided to agree to be on boards. It's always been prayerful. It's always been something that my family's been supportive of. And so I do feel that I have this reliance to be guided and to be inspired. And that is really great for your confidence, and also just an enabler of what the gift of the Spirit can do for us if we use it in our decision making and in our lives. And that has been very advantageous for me my entire life.
Yeah, me too. So Nina, we are almost out of time. I always like to end with asking our guests to invite the women listening to do something right now to prepare them to get more involved in public service. Do you have an invitation of something that our listeners could do?
Oh, there are so many. Yeah, I guess the first thing I would suggest you do is be well informed. Again, do the work to figure out, what are you really passionate about? What do you care deeply about? What is engraven on your heart that matters to each one of you individually? And then take the time to learn and research and read and experience. Get out of your comfort zone in those spaces to really develop and formulate your thoughts and your feelings about that. So do the homework on that. And then the second thing would really be to lean into it. Step out, go to a meeting, go meet a group. They're out there. You've just got to do the work, be intentional about it to create that for your life. Like I said before, I'm big into, you are already writing your life story and your narrative. You're already in it. Many of you are in the later chapters like me, or early chapters, but you're in it. And just be very intentional about what you choose to do in your life, and make sure it aligns with what is engraven authentically in each one of your hearts.
That's beautiful. Nina, you are amazing to talk to. I love it. The way you phrase things and say things is just so inspiring. I feel so blessed to get to work with you and know you, and I appreciate you so much.
Thanks so much, Audrey. It was a pleasure.
Thank you all for listening to the Project Elected podcast. For free resources and materials, head over to projectelectwomen.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as Project Elect Women. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate us, or give us a review on iTunes. So until next time, thank you.